Hey, it's Jason, and I'm handing it over to my content partner, Eric Brandstetter, for a special series with Crissy Manwaring at Robertson Marketing called Psychology of Swag.
Welcome back to the Psychology of Swag. Today, we're talking about a moment that gets billions, literally billions of views on YouTube, but most companies completely ignore: the unboxing experience. Crissy, why do people watch unboxing videos? Is there any psychology actually here?
It has to do with energy and excitement and belonging and love. There's so much that's happening in this moment, and it's a little bit nebulous. And so there's some really fun things that we can talk about here that go into the science of belonging and the power of communicating love. All right, so let's back up just 1 second. Are you familiar at all with the research of Gary Chapman in his book, The 5 Love Languages?
Yes.
All right. One of those 5 ways that we express love, and love is such a hard word because I love my water bottle, I love my dog, I love my car, I love my kid, and those are very different things, but we've only got one word to describe all of them. That when we're communicating love, one of the primary ways we do that is with the giving and receiving of gifts. And so we anticipate this. It's these big moments that matter when we receive gifts, typically in our lives, at our birthday, at these moments of celebration or milestones and recognition, that new hire gift or that thank you gift. And so they're already emotionally loaded. And so when people receive the gift, you have this massive chemical dopamine excitement trigger, a little bit of adrenaline. So you've got this perfect cocktail for a meaningful moment. And so that anticipation, everything is at its highest peak right before you open it. So the power of anticipation is what you're playing with here.
You're right. I've done something, I've experienced something, some moment in time has come down to this moment, and I have this tangible artifact in front of me. My dad, I love this. My dad would always say, you have to enjoy the little moments because there aren't that many big moments. And I think that's spot on. But when you have a big moment like this, my kids, for example, Christmas morning, I don't want them to open a gift on Christmas Eve, for example, because I have excitement. I have this energy that comes from Christmas morning in our house. My kids don't want to wait for it, but it's that really meaningful moment in time right now. So I have an emotional connection to the moment. I have the anticipation. All of these emotions are going through my head. And the unboxing moment is that one time that you transition from anticipation to reality. It's such a big moment.
It absolutely is. And I love that, there aren't many of them, the big moments with that gift. And so people are very excited about it. It's like people watching proposals, right? You experience this once, and I think that's one of the most meaningful gifts that happen in relationships, right? The giving of the ring, and then the wedding and the giving of yourselves to each other, and those symbols and those tokens and those artifacts that become part of those conversations. So before the box is opened, it could be anything. It's a world of possibilities.
Yeah. So why do we watch others? Why do so many people watch unboxing videos? Why do we watch those proposals? What is it about that experience that draws people in?
I think it is that vicarious experience. And also, people follow influencers, right? You follow people that you know, that you like, that you trust, that you want to be like. And so you're following them to see what they like, what they're interested in. And so you're looking for that affinity and that relationship and that excitement. And so when somebody that you either know personally and you follow them for that reason, or they're part of your peer group, or they're part of your aspiration or your affinity group, you want to be like them. And so you watch and see what they're interested in, what they get excited about, what matters to them, because you have those, vicarious relationships that form that way, and that you can build a connection to somebody sometimes through a product or an object that you can't in reality. There's a fascinating anecdote, a little bit of a tangent here, but I'm going to lean on a celebrity moment that happened recently. When we're recording this, It was just last year that Taylor Swift, recorded her latest album, and she did a wrap-up tour, of her massive global campaign. But she gave her fans a gift of this video of her preparing this new album. And in this video, she's wearing a t-shirt for Save the Otters. It was a conservation t-shirt. And her fans see that affinity, right? She loves otters. I love otters. And they went nuts trying to acquire this t-shirt that had been out of print for decades, that this global phenomenon artist had picked up somewhere, and that she happened to be wearing in this video. And all of her fans want to be like her, and so they want this artifact. And so the Conservancy, the Monterey Bay Aquarium, ended up re-releasing that t-shirt for a limited edition. It's one of the very few moments in branded merchandise where I can say you can count the number of seeds in an apple, that you cannot count the number of apples in a seed. And that one t-shirt that was made 30 years ago that was high quality enough that it has endured, that it was still valuable enough because of the way it was branded, that spoke to the end user, got picked up by a celebrity, decades later, secondhand, worn and seen by the public. And then the public went out, and I think the last time I checked the stats on that, it was over $1.2 million were raised by the aquarium selling the reprint of this t-shirt. So the moment in which we live with social media, the visibility of branded merchandise is through the roof. And, to the point that the right product in the right person's hands then gets shared with the public, and the public then react and act upon that. And so when we talk about these unboxing videos, and I'll use an example of a new hire kit unboxing. You have a new team member coming on board, and some of these tech companies that we're working with, these interview processes can be 5, 7, 12 interviews deep to become a member of this team. And there's this moment between accepting the offer letter and the formal onboarding process that you are at your peak arousal of anticipation, of fear, of energy, of excitement, of all of these things about this new journey beginning with this new company. And if your new hire kit lands in that moment, they all unbox it because they want to show to their community where they're going, what they're doing. And so not only are they acquiring these artifacts, the branded t-shirt or the polo or whatever it is, but they want to share that moment and that anticipation. And so we see that, those moments being engaged very strategically by companies of all sizes.
I think too, it sets the tone for the relationship, right? If that gift includes this experience that is unboxing, that sets the tone for the relationship and kind of, I care about you and I want this for you. Is that right?
Yeah, well, you're signaling your care and intentionality. So when you're creating or you're crafting this experience and you're sending it out into the world, this is literally their first touch. We talked previously in one of the episodes about the tactile engagement, right? So this is the first time they're getting their hands on the brand. And so they are so fully engaged as the participant in this moment, but also in our cultural moment of we want to share these moments that matter. And so you're not only designing the experience for the participant and the recipient, but also for them to share with their community. And so we all get to take part in that in ways that we've never been able to do prior in history before this moment of social sharing. But the amplification of the message in that moment and that evidence of how we treat employees at our organization or how we treat our customers or how we treat our brand fans. I mean, there's marketing and advertising that you pay for. When you pop up a banner ad and you're interrupting, right? And you're paying for that exposure. You're paying to get your message out there. You're paying millions of dollars. I mean, we look at these marketing budgets that companies are working with. Their budget for digital marketing is up here. Their budget for branded merchandise it's way down here. I mean, it's not even going to register on the annual spend. But the earned media of making those human moments with the right influencer that already has the audience, and they're sharing their authentic reaction of this experience, it's going to outperform those paid advertisements exponentially always because of the authenticity of that physical moment.
Yeah, and you talk about packaging as part of the gift, not separate from the gift. What do you mean by that? How is the packaging part of the gift?
I mean, it's one package. I mean, I don't know how to describe it. There just aren't enough words sometimes in the English language, but they're all connected. It's all part of the whole experience. And so from the moment that that box lands or that bag lands or whatever, device or delivery mechanism you have used to assemble this gift, it's now entered their life, their experience, and what they do with it next has a lot to do with what it looks like from the outside. You've ordered something from a website and you are anticipating its arrival, you watch for it. You're excited for it, you're anticipating it. There's an open memory loop in your brain that is unresolved until the object lands. And so, we're watching for those things. And then there's the surprise and delight moments where we don't know that it's coming, but all of a sudden it lands. That the second it's there, we're looking at it. Is this, it could be anything. Is it dangerous? Is it exciting? Is it anticipatory? And so we need some visual clues to make the unknown known. So what kind of clues can we give? So sometimes we blind ship it completely and it just comes from shipping department at this address and you have no idea what's in the box and it's plain brown. So there's a whole lot less anticipation on that because it's kind of generic curiosity. Because since the pandemic, we've all been getting a bazillion brown boxes every week. So what if it shows up and it's bright and colorful and branded and you know exactly who it's from the moment you see it on your porch? You've had a different experience there. But the whole experience of revelation and how many layers of revelation are there in this one package? Does the mystery stay? Is it just a brown box on the outside and then you open it up and all of a sudden it's fully branded and colorful on the inside? Is it just, full of crinkle paper or packing peanuts and you're digging through it, kind of like a treasure hunt to find the things? Or have you more orchestrated the unboxing experience and you have layers of discovery? We've done incredible boxes that you open it up and a balloon rises out. We've shipped it with an open Mylar balloon on a string. And that surprise and delight, oh my goodness, this is incredible. Logistically, that is a nightmare. But you're only going to do, how many dozen of these for your high-end influencers. And so you can invest in that experience knowing that when that opens, not only will they see it, but so will their audience. And whether that audience is just, in a salon. This was a campaign that I worked on for a hair product company. And so the balloon rose and it was just a beautiful figure with this hair on it. And it was just so unexpected. And so the surprise and delight of that moment, it's so hard to quantify, but it's emotional.
And how much does sequence matter? In terms of that, so the surprise and delight, right? You've got a package and maybe you know who it's from, maybe you don't know who it's from. Is this a multi-layered thing where it's, the presentation on the outside and then you open up the box and there's something, is sequence not very important from that experience perspective?
It does. I mean, I am blessed, Eric. I get to work with some of the most incredible experienced designers in the world. I mean, both on the brand side and on the agency side. And experience design, there's so much nuance that goes into that. And so when you are designing the unboxing experience, you need to decide which triggers you're going to pull, which buttons you're going to push, how much, one of the constraints on this is going to be budget. I mean, we've done boxes that you open up the first layer and inside there's a piece of tissue paper covering it and a little hammer on the side. And that it says, in case of blank emergency, break, you have to break through the tissue paper to get into it and to see what's in there. And we've done bento style boxes where it's just compartments and everything's laid out and you can see it all, from that moment, but, you've controlled the experience. And then sometimes, it is just it's a box full of packing peanuts and you're trying to dig through and you have no idea what it is you're digging for at that time. But, some of the brands really control this very, very carefully. I mean, there are some times where you want the hero object on top. There are times when you want another teaser on top, so they're unpacking layers. And there are times where it's very, very formal and there's trays that lift out, or it's numbers and it's sequential. You have to pop through this box token to see what's inside of this segment. Or, we did this a lot during the pandemic with virtual events where you didn't have the opportunity to be in person with people. And so people that were coming and joining you digitally, we'd send the physical mailer out to them. And then we'd tell them at certain points in this presentation, open box A or box B or tab C, and in there would be the next physical item to engage and get them ready for the conference. There's so much you can do with this, but whether you put the hero item on top or if you put it a layer deep will really depend on how you want to build the reveal and what type of user experience you're trying to deliver. But my beg for branded merch buyers is to build the experience, because that's where the emotion is. That's where the sensory engagement is. That's where your impact is.
And that's where, so our last episode talked a lot about the vendor relationship, having somebody that you trust and that has that experience and can guide you through what is a proper unboxing, what does a proper strategy look like, what's it feel like, what's it sound like. That's where that becomes really important. And offline previously, you told me a story about how this is pretty early in your career. You were sending out RC cars, and this is part of a sales campaign. And there was, you didn't do it in a traditional way. You want to talk through what you did and some of the results?
Yeah. I mean, this was, oh my goodness, this was like 25 years ago. And so we were working with a company, actually in the healthcare space, and they were trying to get more companies to convert to use their health insurance program. And they're trying to get meetings with CEOs. You know how hard it is to get their attention? I mean, there are so many gatekeepers in between, a salesperson and an executive at that level. And so we ended up sending out remote control race cars with the message that, you're in the driver's seat. You have arrived. You're guiding this organization. We're here to help you guide your financial and your employee healthcare experience as well. Meet with, so-and-so. We'd love to put the controls in your hands. And we'd ship the car, but we didn't ship the controller. And so they had to follow up and make the appointment with the company to get the controller. I mean, how do you get 8 out of 10 CEOs to actually book an appointment with your person? And so when your target list is short, but, we branded the race cars so it looked like that company, and there are so many things you can do with decals and stickers on that artifact. But the unboxing experience, there's anticipation. You're like a kid with a Matchbox car, and that emotion can hit at any age level by making that gift appropriate. And so it's, that unboxing experience. They had so much fun. They pulled out the car, they're handling it, but they can't drive it yet. They have to finish this experience. And so that again goes into the whole experience design and understanding the purpose of the promotion, the behavior you're trying to change, at what level you're playing. And that was a really fun campaign.
Oh, it's fantastic. I can only imagine a busy CEO that has this thing in their brain like, I've got to finish this. I can't just have a car on my desk. I have to finish this. And part of this is I need to make sure that as an organization, what I'm providing is valuable and it's relevant and I'm targeting the right people. Like, assuming all of that's taken care of, you want to finish, you want to close that loop and you want to provide that value. And that there's this interesting thing that happens when I open up a box that has just a car in it, but without the controller. There's anticipation behind it from both the receiving side, but also an intriguing part of this from the sending side.
I mean, the most powerful force that you can engage in the human mind is curiosity, because that's going to hit both the reward sender and the fight or flight, the fear sender, because it hits all of them. That curiosity, that anticipation, that unknown. I mean, that's the power of a closed box, is it can still be anything. And then that layer of opening it up and seeing, okay, now the reveal has happened. And now is there more anticipation, or is this completely resolved and done? And so if I can evoke that sense of curiosity, that anticipation, that excitement, that's where the emotions are the most powerful. And that's where if we anchor those emotions in an object in that moment, it's going to have the most power as a recall trigger in the future.
Yeah. What companies out there are doing this well? Like I know I'm a huge Apple fan. I use Apple for most of my technology that I can. Are they a name that comes to mind when you think about companies that unbox well?
Absolutely. So I would put them as the pinnacle or a benchmark. If you are looking for how do I deliver a world-class unboxing experience, go and open anything Apple has ever packaged. I mean, they are investing significantly in their packaging designers, in their team members that do think through these experiences. And like you, I'm also an Apple fan. And the latest MacBook Pro that I purchased, that unboxing experience for me was magical on multiple levels because I'd been an Apple aficionado for decades. I've had multiple experiences, but this one in particular, it was the fact that all of the eco papers, all of the films were all recyclable. They were all compostable, where in the past they've been plastic. That shift, that attention to detail, that signaling of their values and the values alignment between what I value and what they value is incredibly powerful. And so there's so much that can be done to create those brand affinity moments that are on the packaging side. It doesn't happen without that thoughtfulness, and making sure that the experience aligns with those brands. So when you think about Apple, it's the precision, that minimalism, but the perfection and purpose between every piece that's in there. I remember reading somewhere once that there were almost more patents on the box, that slow lift to get it to release than there were in the technology of the product itself, which is unbelievable for those first iPhones that came out.
But it's the experience. It's anticipation meets the moment, and you want it to be this magical moment. And they've nailed the magical moment of even before you get the thing out of the box. Like, it's fun, it's enjoyable. You want to go buy something just to unbox it like that.
Well, and they make it last, right? They're keeping you at that peak moment of anticipation as long as possible. They know what they're doing. So I don't know. It's a little bit revealing, but you talk about R&D, research and development. We also occasionally refer to that as rip off and duplicate. So they've already done the science. They've got that for you. So how can you deliver that Apple unboxing experience to your organization? So thinking along those lines is kind of that shortcut. But my only request is if you're going to use R&D that way, make sure it's RDI. Rip off, duplicate, but improve. Enhance it for your experience and really make it authentic to your brand.
So, Crissy, is there an example of a client that you've worked with that maybe didn't think about the unboxing experience, didn't think about that part of it? What did they change? What's the impact? How does this work in a real life situation from your experience?
So I remember working with an organization that their onboarding experience was kind of lacking. And they had kind of taken the approach that, hey, we've got a new hire coming on, just grab them something with the logo on it and throw it out. And that was literally what was happening. And so each new hire got a box of random trade show leftovers that was literally like just in a FedEx or UPS branded box, just thrown in. I mean, there was no thought to the packaging. There was no consistency in what anybody got. And most of it was kind of irrelevant to the new hire experience. So, in the guiding in the process and talking to them about, well, what is the current reality of your onboarding experience? And the team was sharing with us that, well, everybody feels like they're just getting a box of logoed crap. And I'm like, because that's what you're sending them. And, we've talked previously about brand fill. That is the definition of it. It's just waste. When I open up that box and I feel like I've just received a box of event leftovers, it doesn't feel thoughtful. It doesn't feel personal. It doesn't enhance or build that relationship with the organization. It just feels like they don't value me very much. I mean, they cared enough to try to send something, but the way it landed, they'd have probably been better to send nothing under those circumstances, rather than make somebody feel disposable and only worth leftovers. But you can take that same thing and, create an experience with it. Put it in a box. And if all you can afford is just the box and crinkle paper, then, at least get the crinkle paper in your brand colors. Put some hollow fill in there. Make it a little bit more of a treasure hunt and that anticipation, that excitement as they go through it. But understanding the value of that moment and making the merch meet that moment with the emotion and intentionality that is representative of what you want this relationship to have a foundation of. And this actually can happen anytime, along a relationship journey. Some of the clients that we work with have, hundreds of products and hundreds of services. And so they're touching their customers multiple times along the journey. And so creating these brand love moments, this moment of excitement and anticipation, when a new product is released and they want to let their key customers know and be a part of the beta for this new product, sending out this unexpected box to their key customers and prospects, understanding that there's going to be, when you're engaging with your love group, there is some magic there about doing very, very few items, but doing them very, very well. And that will get you that earned media and those impressions that you're looking for.
Yeah, so good. So I know, Chris, you have a framework. So taking this to action now, it's, again, it's Monday morning, as has been our theme throughout this series. I'm a leader. I'm trying to figure out, how can I make the unboxing process for us? How can I make that memorable? Walk us through some of these steps.
So the first one is to put some intentionality between, first focus on the user experience. So step one, the outer packaging, that first impression. Are you going to tell them who it's from immediately, or are you going to be deliberately vague on that? So just make sure there's some intentionality behind that. So that branded outer packaging is element one. Element number two is going to be the interior packaging element. It needs to be protective of the items and the artifacts that are included in the kit, but it also needs to be beautiful and relatable. And so based on your budget, that can be anything from, crinkle paper or some recycled shred up to, trays that everything is going to be in its place and you can really control what that opening experience is like, because you know exactly what they're going to see when that box is opened. Element three is that intentional sequence and layering and understanding what they're going to see first, what they're going to interact with first. If they're lifting out trays, do they have the tabs that make it easy and intuitive to know where to lift and pull and engage with the content to uncover those layers in the sequence that you've designed to give that user that experience. Element four is that personalization. Does it have their name? Does it have a personalized note? Is there a highly custom element that is just for them? And element five is that surprise, that delight, that unexpected, that thing that they weren't expecting. Can we hit that last trigger and boost it up one more notch for that emotional impact? Because it's the emotion that's going to make the promotion endure. And as many of those triggers as we can pull, as many of those brain chemicals that we can get firing, and as many of those senses as we can engage. Maybe it's hitting a custom fragrance, maybe it's playing with light, a sensor that you open up the box and a light goes on, or a music starts to play. Can we tie in another sense there with taste, touch, sound, some other sensory engagement?
That's really good. So I want to walk through two different examples and maybe teams. If I'm an HR team and going back to the new hire kit, how do I prioritize, of the different options of what I could be doing for maybe an unboxing event or for gifting for new hires? Where do I start?
I would prioritize for that the personalization, because you want to make it feel very intimate. You want to make them feel that they are an important member of your team, that you're anticipating their arrival as much as they're anticipating their participation. And you really want to hit that sense of belonging. And so really hyper-personalize if you can.
And then what about for sales teams? If I'm thinking through, how do I stand out as a vendor, as a service partner? What can I do there? How does gifting work from that angle?
I think it's making it, appropriate for the relationship and thinking about, again, the end user's lived environment. And so in a sales relationship, those are actually quite intimate when you think about it, because the product they're purchasing and you probably also know how they're using it. And so creating, that experience that's relevant to their experience.
No, that's good. That's good. So I know, Crissy, you built out a bunch of resources for people to go to and be able to learn more about merchandising and branding in general. Where can people go to learn more?
Head over to promobuyguide.com and learn a little bit more about how to implement these frameworks in your own decisions and your own purchasing initiatives.
It's great. That's promobuyguide.com. And next week, Crissy, you and I are going to be talking about quality, how materials signal value in 3 seconds or less. Really looking forward to that conversation. Thanks, Crissy.
Thanks, Eric.
Thanks for tuning in to this special episode of Working Forward. Want to be part of future conversations like this one? Join us inside our PFN community at bit.ly/PFN community, where the future of work is happening now. See you there.